Hello again, everyone. We'll finish chapter 1 of IGCSE Biology syllabus, which is Characteristics and Classification of Living Organisms. So 1.3 Features of Organisms. So all living organisms are made up of basic units called a cell, and cells have a cytoplasm, cell membrane, and DNA, and ribosomes for protein synthesis and enzymes for respiration. So cytoplasm is like, for example, when there is a lake, the lake water where reactions happen could be a cytoplasm. And the boundary of the lake, which provides water from flowing over, would be cell membrane. And DNA is like a recipe to produce proteins within a cell. So when a recipe from this DNA is extracted, that recipe is used by ribosomes to synthesize proteins that are used inside the cell and outside the cell. And cells also have enzymes which is used for respiration inside the mitochondria. So here is a picture of a cell, general cell. It has this DNA here. It's usually encapsulated inside the nucleus. And a cell membrane, ribosomes, and cytoplasm. And now we looked at cells, and we're going to go back a little to 5 kingdoms in classification. So there are total 5 kingdoms, which are animals, plants, fungi, protoctists, and prokaryotes. And we need to go over characteristics of each kingdoms. So animals like humans, bats, and birds are multicellular organisms, and their cells do not have cell wall or chloroplast. Because we're not making energy ourselves, but we're producing energy by eating others. So animals feed on organic substances made from other organisms, and which are called heterotrophs. And plants, like an oak tree. So plants feed by photosynthesis, which is done by chloroplasts within the cell. So plants produce their own energy, so they are called autotrophs. So photosynthesis, just to give you a bit understanding, we will cover this later in topic 6, but photosynthesis is breaking down, photosynthesis is using sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to produce glucose, which is used as energy within our body. And plants also have cellulose cell walls. The reason I wrote cellulose cell walls because they all have like a lot of these kingdoms have cell walls, but the ingredients for these cell walls are a little different according to the kingdom. And third kingdom is fungi. So fungi has chitinous cell walls made out of chitin and not cellulose. And fungi are saprophytic, which means they feed by breaking down or decomposing dead materials. And 4, protoctists. So protoctist kingdom are composed of protoctists, which are mostly unicellular, like amoeba. And their cells have nucleus, and some feed from others, but some feed on their own. So you might be confused a little bit with protoctists and bacteria, but one thing you can use to distinguish them is that protoctists have nucleus and bacteria do not. So bacteria is included in prokaryotes, which are mostly unicellular, but they do not have nucleus or mitochondria like protoctists and other organisms. And prokaryotes have peptidoglycan cell wall, which is different from chitinous cell wall and cellulose cell wall. So you can differentiate these kingdoms using the features I just explained. And going a little specifically into phylums, we'll first look at not phylums, classes. So we'll first look at animal classes in phylum Chordata, which means vertebrates. So there are 5 classes in animal, which are fish, amphibian, reptile, bird, and mammal. So we'll start with fish. So fishes have wet scales, and they use gills to breathe, and they lay eggs with shells. And they are ectotherms, which means they cannot control temperature on its own. So second class is amphibians like frog. Amphibians have moist skin and they breathe through their skins and lay eggs without shells. And they are also ectotherms like fish, which means they cannot control temperature on their own. Third class is reptiles like snake and alligator. Reptiles have dry scales unlike fish, and they use lungs to breathe, and they lay rubbery eggs with shells, and they are ectotherms also. And now we're getting a little different. So birds have skin covered in feathers, not like a smooth skin. Not only just smooth skin like amphibians, or they don't have scales too. And they use lungs to breathe, and they have a beak, which is a unique feature, and they lay hard eggs, not soft. And they are endotherms, which means now they can internally control their temperature by using heat from respiration. And the final class we're going to look is mammals like gorilla and humans. Mammals have fur and hair on their skin, and they have mammary glands and a placenta. Placenta is kind of like a suborgan inside female mammals. It's a reproductive organ, and we'll cover that in topic 16. And mammals give birth to live young, and they are also endothermic. And now we're going to look at invertebrates instead of vertebrates. So these classes of invertebrates are inside phylum Arthropoda. We're going to look at myriapods, insects, arachnids, and crustaceans. So first we have to look at the shared features they have. So shared features, which the question always give marks, are exoskeleton and the presence of jointed limbs and segmented body. So starting with myriapods, like centipede and millipede, myriapods have a pair of antennae and they have many pair of legs. And insects like ants, insects have 3 body parts, which are head, thorax, and abdomen, and they have 3 pair of legs, which makes them easily distinguishable from other classes inside Arthropoda. So arachnids, as you can see from name, which is familiar, arachnids are spiders basically. So they have 2 body parts, like unlike 3, which are cephalothorax and abdomen, and they have 4 pair of legs, and they do not have antennae. And finally, crustaceans like crabs, lobster, and shrimps. So crustaceans have more than 4 pair of legs, and they have 2 pair of antennae, and some have pincers. Now we're going to go over plant classification. First, we have to be able to differentiate between fern plants and flowering plants. So fern plants do not produce flowers, and they reproduce by spores. And flowering plants instead produce flowers and reproduce by seeds and flowers. So this is the first classification we have to go over, and the second one is distinguishing between monocotyledons and dicotyledons. So monocot and dicot is, as you can see from name, there is a part called cotyledon from growing plant, and mono means the plant has one cotyledon, and dicotyledon means the plant have 2 cotyledons. But more in detail, they have other differences too. So flower petals for monocots are in multiple of 3, while flower petals and dicots have multiple of 4 or 5. And they have parallel leaf veins, and dicotyledon on the other hand have reticulated leaf veins. What I mean by reticulated is like a net shape, so they're connected and like you can think like a delta shape, a delta in a river. Yeah. And now we're going to also look at the virus. So virus has genetic material, envelope, and a protein coat. But viruses are not living organisms. Why? Because remember the 7 characteristics 6 of life, organisms must pass all those 7 characteristics to be classified as living. But virus cannot reproduce on its own, and they reproduce via they're injecting their genetic material to a host cell. So they fail the basic characteristic reproduction, but it also fails other characteristics too, but because the virus fails those characteristics, they're not classified as living. And now we're going to, actually for 1.4 dichotomous keys, it's just basically using series of binary questions to identify organisms. But this would be more intuitively explained by solving questions together, so it will be explained in practice problem solving videos. Thank you.